It's Real Sports Talk with Kenny Kluska on the Damage 365 Radio Network.
Why, hello there, everybody. Welcome to episode number 74 of Real Sports Talk with Kenny Kluska. Of course, I'm your host, Kenny Kluska, here for another exciting episode, day before 4th of July. Hope everyone's enjoyed their fireworks, barbecues, etc., and enjoy your Monday off tomorrow. Always a good thing when 4th of July lands on a Monday. Who doesn't like a Monday off from work? Anyhow, let's get into episode number 74. Just real quick, couple things coming up. 3 weeks from today, we have WWE's next pay-per-view, Battleground. Of course, the main event is the three members of The Shield in a triple threat for the WWE Heavyweight Championship. We got champion Dean Ambrose, recently cashed in his Money in the Bank to become champion. Recently returned Seth Rollins, who won the belt, but then got cashed in by Dean Ambrose, so only held it for a few minutes. And former champ Roman Reigns, currently in the midst of a 30-day suspension for violating WWE's drug policy. But he will be back for Battleground. I also liked how the WWE mentioned his suspension, Seth Rollins did in his promo. Why act like the fans are stupid? We all know that he's suspended. Let's not act like he's on vacation or, just taking time off. We all know what the reason is why he wasn't on Raw last Monday. But also wrestling related, sort of. 6 days from today is UFC 200, where, of course, the Beast incarnate, Brock Lesnar, is returning to WWE to fight Mark Hunt. Should definitely be an interesting matchup between the two, and what seems to be a star-studded UFC 200 card that comes this Saturday. And for you NFL fans who are pining for football ever since, the Broncos beat the Panthers in the Super Bowl, we are 67 days... Did I say... Yes, sorry. I thought I said Patriots. Broncos beat the Panthers. 67 days away from the NFL regular season opener on a Thursday. We got the Carolina Panthers once again facing the Denver Broncos. Of course, this time around, Peyton Manning will not be leading the charge for the Broncos as their quarterback. More than likely will be Mark Sanchez. Denver still got a very stout defense despite losing a couple guys, so we'll see if the quarterback play really is all that important for them. Of course, Peyton Manning did not exactly have one of his elite seasons last year. They still won the Super Bowl. Sanchez, he's gotten a lot of flack over the years, especially for that butt fumble play. As long as he's competent, the Broncos should still be probably one of the better teams in the NFL, but definitely entertaining to see a Super Bowl rematch as the NFL regular season opener. Of course, 3 days after that is the first Sunday NFL football. That's 10 weeks away. It's coming quick. Don't worry, fans. You'll get your football fix pretty soon. Myself, I'm not a huge fan of preseason football. Maybe it's something I'll turn on maybe for the first quarter, when the starters play. Just really doesn't entertain me. Most preseason sports don't, whether it's spring training baseball, preseason basketball, preseason hockey. Sometimes if there's, a position battle, that makes it a little more interesting. If you're a fan of a team that may have a quarterback controversy, then, there's more reason for you to watch. Otherwise, I don't know. I just like it a heck of a lot more when the games actually count. But, for people that want football that bad, preseason's about a month away. So, you have that to look forward to. Of course, July 1st, 2 days ago, marked the beginning of NBA free agency, and what a start we got off to with that. I'll have more on that after the commercial break later on in the show, because there has been a ton of money handed out, and some of the big free agents haven't even signed yet. Kevin Durant, of course, the cream of the crop. Expected to maybe come to a decision by tomorrow. Looking like it's really between the Thunder and perhaps the Celtics. The Celtics took a big step to possibly getting him by signing Al Horford yesterday to a max contract. Celtics were one of the better teams in the East. To add Al Horford to that team and possibly Kevin Durant could easily give LeBron James and the Cavaliers a run for their money. Of course, Thunder were only a game away from making the NBA Finals this past season. Blew a 3-1 lead. You have to wonder if that leaves a sour taste in Durant's mouth, where he could possibly leave. We'll find out in about maybe a day. I always expected him to sign probably a 1-year deal with a player option for the following year. Of course, he could get paid even more annually come next year because I believe he'll have been in the league 10 years now. That's incredible. I thought that's what he was going to do all along. Plus Russell Westbrook will be a free agent after that season as well. Then they could both decide together, whether they want to stay in Oklahoma City or whether they want to travel for what they consider greener pastures. But the Celtics do gotta seem like an intriguing option. Of course, there's a lot less firepower in the East. There's a lot less teams, a lot less elite teams that you have to go through. Other than Cleveland, Toronto, maybe. We'll see if they do anything in free agency. All they've really done so far was re-sign DeMar DeRozan. Lost Biyombo, more on him later. Other than that, there's a bunch of decent, good teams in the East, but, just not as much firepower as the West, where, besides OKC, you got San Antonio, you got Golden State, you got the Clippers. So, Durant may see an easier path to his first NBA championship by going to the East. And, that could be the reason why he does decide to leave OKC. Of course, it's all speculation until he announces his decision. Of course, both fans of the Oklahoma City Thunder and Boston Celtics are sitting at the edge of their seats. Definitely would be a huge step for both teams if Durant either decides to stay with the Thunder or move on to the Celtics. We will find out soon. Other somewhat big-name free agent, well, not somewhat, LeBron James, but opted out. He's gonna re-sign with the Cavaliers, so you can't really wonder much about him. Dwayne Wade, he's been going through contract negotiations with the Heat. Apparently, they can't come up, with an agreement on both sides. Apparently he's been looking at other teams. The rumor is that there are teams offering him upwards of $20 million a season. For me, at least, this seems like the same song and dance as last season when Wade was making it seem like there was a chance that he may leave the only team he's known in the NBA before re-signing for a year. It's really hard to see Dwayne Wade leaving, just like it is Dirk Nowitzki with the Mavericks. Nowitzki also a free agent. With Nowitzki, you gotta wonder Yes, it's very unlikely he leaves. He's been so loyal to Mark Cuban, taking pay cuts. But, maybe this is the last straw. The fact that they've struck out in free agency once again, which they've seemingly done every season since they won the NBA championship. Went hard after Hassan Whiteside and Mike Conley. Both ended up re-signing with their respective teams of the Heat and Grizzlies. Now, apparently, they're going to offer Harrison Barnes a max contract, sign him to an offer sheet. He's a restricted free agent, so the Warriors will have an opportunity to match, which they've said they will do so. So if Barnes goes back to the Warriors, they really, once again, swung and missed in this free agency period. You got to feel bad for Dirk, as I mentioned. He's been taking these pay cuts, maybe taking half or a third of what he could have made in the open market, just to give the Mavericks more salary cap room. And really all they have to show for it is 2 years of Chandler Parsons, who moved on and was somewhat injury-plagued in those 2 seasons, and giving Wesley Matthews a max contract, which, with the way contracts are going now, that contract isn't that bad, but, didn't have a great season last year, will Dirk Nowitzki finally say enough is enough? I truly believe that there's some Mavericks fans that are starting to feel bad for him and actually wouldn't mind seeing him leave just so, he could have an opportunity to play for a winner as his career winds down. Because this Mavericks team just seems to be stuck in mediocrity, whether they're the 7, 8, or 9 seed in the West. That really leads to nowhere, so we'll see what he does. Real quick on my Knicks, definitely liking their moves. I was interested in them signing Eric Gordon, who instead went to the Rockets. The Knicks instead signed Courtney Lee, but it definitely would have been a challenge to go into the season with Derrick Rose and Eric Gordon as your backcourt. Both very injury-plagued. Derrick Rose did play 66 games last year, but Eric Gordon, it seems like every season he's playing either 40 or 50 games. So to have 2 guys that, as your starting backcourt where both guys could miss, a plentiful amount of games, really isn't the ideal situation. Courtney Lee, he's a solid defensive shooting guard, could hit the three. Noah, of course, signed as their center, 4 years, $72 million. First glance may not look like a great contract, but when you see what some of these other big men are getting, you really can't bat an eye at it. Struggled last year, only played, I believe, 29 games due to injury. But this is a guy that only 2 seasons ago in 2013-14 was a first-team All-NBA player and Defensive Player of the Year. Not a great offensive player, but when you got Rose, Melo, and Porzingis in your starting lineup, offense from your center probably isn't the biggest priority. So, as long as he could be a challenger at the rim, grab rebounds, he'll definitely play an important role for the Knicks and hopefully stay healthy. Of course, the Knicks still need to construct a bench, looking to re-sign some of their players from last season, like Langston Galloway, Derek Williams, Lance Thomas, and Kevin Seraphin. Right now, really all they have on their bench is Kyle O'Quinn. But within the next few days, we should find out who's on their bench, and find out where some of these other bigger name free agents are heading. Still a lot of free agents out there. This free agency period is far from over. Of course, everything I've mentioned, none of these guys can officially sign until July 7th when the free agent moratorium period is over.